Got it. Okay. Here we go. Rhyme or free, it doesn't matter to me. It's my bad poetry. Good day, and welcome to My Bad Poetry, a podcast where we take a deep dive into our poems from youth, yesteryear, or even yesterday. Always asking the question, why in the world did I write this? I'm Aaron.
And I'm Dave.
And today we have with us an artist, archivist, filmmaker, writer, composer, and honestly cross-disciplinary, seems to barely scratch the surface when it comes to his work, with work featured in the Minneapolis Institute of Art and a chapbook Mayday published through Bottle Cap Press. May we say today, Shaawan Francis Keahna, welcome to My Bad Poetry.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I've really been excited to be on here with you guys, get to chatting about bad poetry and, less bad poetry.
Yes, yes. Well, yeah. we get to the less bad by the end. But this was a fairly short intro. And honestly, to try and summarize all of your different talents and works, it felt like an impossible task when I was writing this intro. So is there anything else that you'd like to say to our dear listeners?
For now, I'd like to highlight that I'm at a really interesting point in my career. For me personally, not really publicly interesting. And the reason I'm highlighting that is because I've noticed, especially in the last week with people, I live in Baltimore. Right now it's grant season. The Grit Fund is open. The Rubies Award, which I am a Rubies grant of 2024 Rubies recipient. The Rubies Award, which is closing today. Everybody was sending me their grants to look over. And that was really, I think, the killing blow for my imposter syndrome, because I genuinely didn't realize that I was considered even a little bit established in any possible way. I've always felt very much like the baby in the room. And so I'm at this weird point in my career where it's like a lot of people publicly think you have your stuff together, you have it together. And I'm finally at a point internally where I feel like that might be a little bit true, and getting to a point where I can say, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to live my life as an artist, and I know I can, and I love the work, and I love the people I get to meet and help and all of that. So I think that's why it's difficult to sum up what I do, because it's very people driven instead of self driven or whatever. It's very much, I'm very hanging out oriented.
That's awesome. I love that for you. I mean, imposter syndrome is a beast, and yeah. Anytime you can be reminded of like who you really are, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Now we have some shared roots.
Yeah, we're both from Minnesota-ish. Yeah.
Ish, yeah. Dave, all the way.
I'm actually from Minnesota. Aaron is from what, like Iowa or
Ohio,
Arkansas,
Dave?
something like that. Nope, Iowa.
So where at's in Minnesota? And then is that how you got work in the Minneapolis Institute?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Midwest. In my mother used to joke, "Oh, we grew up in the three whitest states," because we're Native American. I come from a Native family, and I bounced between Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa growing up as a child for like the big formative years, as they call it, and then expanded into spending summers in Seattle and Montana. There was a brief stint in Maine, but I was born in Minneapolis, and that's where most of my childhood summers were spent, because that's where all my grandparents are.
Oh, great. Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, there's a few other shared connections too.
Yes. Dave and I are both Lutheran pastors, and you let us know ahead of time you have found yourself at a Lutheran church. Is that correct?
I did. And it's funny, I've been missing church lately because of my godless schedule, where everybody wants to shoot on Sundays because everybody has jobs.
Right.
So they're like, everybody has jobs. Saturday is for partying. Sunday is definitely for the passion projects, which has been a necessary sacrifice, but it's also something. Yeah, I go to St. Mark's Evangelical Lutheran Church here in Baltimore, Maryland, in Charles Village, Station North area. They have a really strong history of social justice and civic responsibility, and all these really cool, just a cool, interesting church with cool, interesting people. And I stumbled into it a little bit by accident. But I really love the community there, and I really love the people I've met, and it definitely makes my Minnesota family happy that I go to the Lutheran church.
That's fair.
Well, and that's why we're having you on the show today. Your pastor got in touch with us and said you're working on Sundays, and
Yeah, you're missing out. We this is an intervention.
we're here to be judgmental jerks about it. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
Oh man, I feel like would have a lot to talk about that's not bad poetry. So before we go too much further into other things, Dave, how about you bring us into the realm of bad poetry with whatever you have hastily written for this week?
So, this is a surprisingly personal poem for me. It's called The Dave Turn.
I'm
Because
judging
my
this already.
you have to judge it.
Okay.
Because I am known for writing my terrible poetry and like pretending like I'm being serious and then just being an idiot like I normally am. So this is called The Dave Turn.
Okay.
When writing poetry, you expose nerves. Fear and insecurity manifest like thunder after lightning. To diffuse the tangle of judgment and self-recrimination, serious turns to silly, tacking strange to severe, shielding feelings in a Faraday cage from perception. The desire to shrink and hide reveals the fear in my words. Banana hammock.
And there it is.
There it is.
Banana hammock.
Banana hammock.
You can't get a serious thought out there. You
No, I
have
can't.
to hedge your bet.
Because if I'm serious, then people can judge me based on my seriousness. Or I can just say something stupid, and that takes the pressure off for me.
Well, I don't know what to say, Dave.
I like the confidence that you gave me in that. Just
It's interesting. I mean, I had two first impressions come off of that right away. It just triggered a memory, which is I was riding in the bed of a truck with my eldest brother, his then pregnant wife. The baby has since become a full 6-year-old terror, but it was cooking at the time.
Sure.
yeah.
And we were in the bed of this truck, and there was this little boy, and it was nighttime, and he was lit so spookily. He was lit so mysteriously, and he was being quiet for the first time, I think, all week, because he would not shut up the entire week. He's so cute, dude. He was the cutest little guy ever. But he was being very quiet, and the stars were above us. This was Montana. There was no light pollution. And then he just very calmly said, "Banana fish." And my brother, I laughed because that was funny. And then my brother looked frightened and haunted. And I was like, "What happened?" And Bryce said, "How did he know?" And I said, "What? How did he know what?" And Bryce said, "Banana fish. It was the first fish I ever caught. It was my first time fishing, and it was the first fish I ever caught was a banana fish." And he just went into this whole serious spiral. It was almost the verbal opposite of your poem, where it was like the punchline came first, and then it turned into this incredibly deep experience. So
what you're saying is I'm a genius.
I'm saying you're tapped into something.
Oh, okay. I will accept that.
That's amazing. Have you ever thought about writing about that experience?
The banana fish bed of the truck experience?
Yeah.
For sure. Especially that. See, I've thought about it. I've thought about writing a lot about my very weird youth. But I just haven't yet. I think I'm focusing a lot on other things.
Yeah.
But actually, okay, wait. So is this a good segue into my bad poem from my
Yes,
weird
please.
youth?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
If you have brought us poems from your youth, that is the perfect segue.
Yeah. Because you asked, have I ever thought about writing about that time? Well, this was what I was writing at that time.
Okay, so which poem do you want to read for us first?
Let's do the worst one. I'm gonna do the worst one, which is the first one. I did that very intentionally.
Sounds good. So the rule is no context or defense first. We hear it read, and then we dive in.
All right. I could write a song, maybe. Maybe if I tried, probably. The problem isn't the melody or even the words, it's all too easy. I could sing my song, definitely. Definite vibrato, probably. The problem isn't to do with me or even the words, they're way too easy. The problem is the harmony. The problem is not to do with me. The song has nothing to do with me, so, fi, la, ti, do, with me. Maybe if I tried.
Is there more, or is that the next stanza a different poem?
The next stanza is a different poem.
Oh, so you just had a
Okay.
style going for a bit there.
I did.
Okay, we'll have to talk about that because I'm looking and like shape wise, these
Yeah.
two are incredibly similar.
Yeah.
Starting with long phrases and then just down into one word lines
Yeah.
here.
I mean,
Okay.
I could read the second one too if
No,
you
no, no,
want.
no. We
Yeah.
have plenty to work on here.
Oh yeah.
So, okay. So, did you try to write songs?
I did very briefly as a kid try to write songs, and now I must have been 16. I pulled these poems from notebooks that I found from when I was a
I
teenager.
love it. That's
Nice.
perfect.
Like these were handwritten in a notebook that I carried with me to school. And I think I had it in my head that I wanted to be a singer-songwriter because at the time I had a very good grasp on my singing style,
Hmm.
but I didn't know slash didn't kind of similarly to what Dave was saying. It's like I don't want to be serious because then people can judge me and make fun of me. So I would just
Ah.
flinch at the last minute and be like, actually, I can't care about this because caring is cringe. And so
Yep.
I didn't work hard on this thing that is 100% a thing you hone. It is a craft, but I just
No.
didn't. So this was my poem, sort of reckoning with. I guess. I mean, it's been so long. It's been over 10 years, well
Sure.
over 10 years now, since I wrote this poem. And if I recall correctly, a lot of what I was reckoning with was the balance between how easily certain things came to me and then my own disdain at having to work for anything as a result of that.
Mm.
No. Well, because it's not your problem. It's not your fault. It's somebody else's.
It's got to be somebody else's fault because it didn't come
Yeah.
easily to me the first time.
That's like the perfect teenage mentality.
Yeah.
Just like, if it doesn't click immediately, not my problem. Yeah, that line is, it's just quintessential teenaging. The problem is not to do with me.
That's it. That is what they're all thinking.
Oh,
Right,
it's
yeah.
perfect. Oh, wow. Okay. So, the song being maybe more of a metaphor for just any experience in your time as a 16-year-old or okay.
I'm nodding and realizing this is a podcast. I would say that's a good analysis.
No.
I was being I was being like less generous than you because I just was looking at this like this poem doesn't really mean much at all.
I love the transition from me to solfege there.
Right.
Yeah. Did you work with solfege back in the day? Maybe high school choir or anything? Or
For sure.
okay.
Yeah. I was being trained in three different vocal schools of singing. Essentially, I went to high school choir, which had its roots in like we were in a very small town in Wisconsin at this point, so we did a lot of religious music, and then the religious music really transitioned into teaching us about jazz and
Oh,
different traditional hymnals from around the world.
that's
We
kind
had
of
a
cool.
really cool choir teacher,
Yeah.
Georgie Edgington, was just the best. And summertime, I would be learning more bluesy and improvisational music with my voice, which was super fun for me as a kid. And then weekends, I would go up to Duluth, Minnesota to learn show tunes. And that was the most difficult one for me because I was not a theater kid. I was missing the theater kid gene. So I was
Oh.
having a really
Okay, we're gonna call off the podcast. If you don't care about musical theater, what's the point?
It's like I thought we had another connection, but We'll let it
No.
pass. We'll let it pass.
It was so, I mean, it was, that's the, I bet that's where the maybe if I tried came from because I felt so, I wanted so badly to be part of that crowd. And
It's a
they were
pretty
all,
hardcore click. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think tapping into my little 16-year-old brain, it was like, I remember thinking, like, oh my God, what is wrong with me that I'm not as hype about Spring Awakening as these other kids are?
To be fair, Spring
Fair.
Awakening way overrated. I'm gonna say that up front.
Oh gosh.
How long of a drive? I mean, I forget how close Wisconsin is to Duluth. Was that a big trip to do your weekend show
It was
tunes?
an hour. It
Oh
was an
wow.
hour from, because
Okay.
I was in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. I grew up there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I have a question here. Is this a concrete poem? Like, this looks like a music note.
Oh my gosh,
Like,
Dave.
it could be a music note.
Oh, wow.
If you formatted it, if you justify the single word lines to the other side,
Yeah.
and then you've kind of got the eighth note, so it's like going for a high note. I don't know.
At that time, I didn't know the ways that people were using poetry to
Hmm.
make images. And even to this day, I remember there's a really good poem in Taco Bell Quarterly that I read that was has a really long title, but basically poem in which the poet this is paraphrasing poem in which the poet is beating Henry Kissinger to death with their bare hands, and the poem itself, the words are made into the image of the poet beating Henry Kissinger to death with their bare. It was genius. I
Wow.
We barely scratched the surface with this, and I had no idea at the time that you could do that. I thought everything had to be just, and to
No.
this day, I still do. To be honest, I have to make myself tab.
First of all, shout out to Taco Bell Quarterly. I don't think we've actually name checked them on this show ever before, but they're up there with like Bullshit Lit and Bottle Cap Press and stuff as some of those really cool publishers out there. So, and Kith, shout out to Kith. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. Let's see. So that's a no on the concrete poem, which felt like a stretch there, Dave.
Come on. I think it can be forced into being a concrete poem, but
I see it. I see the vision. As
yeah.
soon as you were like, do this, that, and the other thing, I saw how it could, with very little editing,
Yeah, that's
take
true.
shape.
I'm just saying your genius shines through even in whatever the hell this is.
Thank you.
I think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I will say there's a cool thing that you were doing here with like repetitive words. Like there's some mirroring here that I, as a 16-year-old writing crappy poems, would never have thought to do. With the repeat of maybe and then probably problem and then definitely definite and then getting back to the maybe at the very end, a nice kind of chiastic structure. I mean, there's some cool wordplay that you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely my English teacher's doing. He's so, I gotta say, I mean, thank you for sure. And small town, my English teacher was also my track coach, was also my babysitter, was also my forensics coach,
That tracks.
was also my homeroom teacher.
Wow.
Matt Ostrander, he really, I'm name dropping him because I'm gonna send this to him.
Sure.
He's really the type of person who did not treat his students. He's retired now and just
Mhm.
constantly going on little adventures.
Mm-hmm.
But he was definitely, as a teacher, not the type of person to treat his students as if we were dumb. And as a result, even the ones that I would qualify as dumb students came up with some really interesting work because he did not talk down to us, and he did not. He interrogated us really, and had us interrogate our usage of these words. And I think, yeah, there is something kind of cool with the maybes and the definite, the teenage words that are at play here.
Definitely maybe. Yep.
Yeah.
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 Oh, that's
Cool.
fun. Now, you mentioned English teacher. Were you writing to a prompt, or you? No, you said you pulled this from a private journal, so this wasn't homework.
No,
Okay.
I had
Okay.
no poetry as homework, I don't think. I think it was
Really?
all,
Oh,
yeah, I think I must have had, we did haikus one time as
sure.
middle
Sure.
schoolers.
Yep. I
But,
think that's
but
a standard, like,
yeah,
fifth grade, you learn haiku or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Need to make sure you can count, and then that's
Yeah.
you're
There you
good.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else from this poem that you remember? Or should we transition to the next one that I honestly thought was the second stanza to this one?
Hmm.
Let's transition to the next one. I've run out of things. I've run out of memory bank as
Sure.
far like going back to the long-term memory for this first one. Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. Here's the next one.
I want to tell you what I do know. I've been expecting an adventure all my life. Perhaps it's the impatience of a teenager. Here's what I know. Ian should be involved. Res kids are a part of it. Angel Bobby in a room by the sea. Fear, pain, anger, love, song, family, life. And someone already told me how it's supposed to end. So why hasn't it started? No, it has.
So when you express such deep emotions, all I have to say is, what? I
This
I
feels more
want an
like,
adventure, but like it hasn't started, but it has, but kind of maybe not.
yeah, this feels like some sort of cryptic code. Like either you're going to start like an Ocean's 11 heist or you just realize the secret of the universe. Like I can't
Hmm.
quite read what's going on here.
That's exactly, thank you. That's exactly the vibe. That's the we need to get the band back together for one last job. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
know you stepped away from it, but we gotta go.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, no, that's totally the vibe. Plus the secret of the universe thing.
Hmm.
This one I have a lot more backstory on, I will
Okay.
say,
Let's
for as
hear it.
far as the,
Yeah.
because, and I put it in there, and I was so anxious about putting it in there because for me, it's the most, with the context, embarrassing one because
Okay.
it's the one where when you're a kid and you think the people who are currently in your life are going to be in your life forever and ever
Forever.
and ever until you die.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, especially so the two people I name drop, Ian and Bobby. Uh, Bobby is fully just a bad person,
Oh
fully like not a good
no.
person.
Oh no.
And that's kind of all I'll say about that. He was my just a not a good person. And but I had such a vivid vision as a child. I had a very big imagination, and I remember one of the things that inspired me a lot was this vision slash dream I had of him with angel wings,
Hmm.
sitting in a weird structure by the sea. I would just have these little visions come to me when I was a teenager and a kid of, urban decay, seaside town rotting, Lovecraftian imagery mixed just a lot of maritime imagery was calling to me as a kid, mixed with, yeah, industrial crumbling. And those I pulled on that a lot with the fiction that I wrote at the time, the poetry I wrote at the time, and just the dreams and the things I would have my brain invent because I had this very vivid imagination that was just so capable of fleshing out full scenes. So that was something that I threw in there because it felt important. And Ian is a person I don't speak to anymore, who is not a bad person, but just was somebody that I don't know if I had a misguided crush. We were mistaken for each other constantly.
Hmm.
Oh.
We were these little, except he had blue eyes, I guess, bluish eyes. But when we were little, we both had the same Beatles haircut,
Sure.
and the same face. And so people would address me as him. I don't know if people addressed him as me. I think he was a micro celebrity in our town. We were the same age. We're the same age, but he would perform Billy Joel on the piano
Huh.
starting from fourth grade onward, I think.
Okay.
And that was his whole thing. And he'd do these shows at the bars and all of that as a child. And so he was this little celebrity, and people would come up to me and be like, "Oh, I love your work." And I'm like, "Thanks, but I'm not him." I'll let him know. But he would go back and forth between being actively, just like actively not not vibing with me at all, just active animosity. And he had like a little clique of boys who all cut their hair like him. And I was not in that clique, but he
Mm.
had a little clique of boys that all cut their hair like him and would follow him around and do his bidding. It was so funny. And he had one of them flag me down in the middle school hallway, and I was like, what do you want? And this boy was like, Ian just wanted me to let you know he hates you and he never wants to see you again. And I was like, awesome. I'm on my way to class, buddy.
Oh my
Just,
gosh.
and then of course we hung out later. It was just very standard small town of 2,000 people treatment of each
Wow.
other.
Yeah. Wow.
Very, very dramatic. All caps. Ian was in all caps in the poem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought because we were doppelgangers, there was some big meaning to our being the same age.
Hmm. So he
Fascinating.
needs to be involved in whatever this
Yeah.
plan is.
Yeah, I thought he was like a crucial part of the plan.
Yeah.
The plan being what?
See, that's the rub, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've written about this kind of extensively, and I don't know how much you believe in the supernatural or in paranormal stuff, or what your level of relationship with spirituality is. As a kid, I would have these recurring, very vivid dreams about. When I was very little, I'd call it the big thing, because that's when it started. Was when I was very little, and I would call it the big thing. And I would say all these scary things to adults in my life, where I'm like, the big thing is coming. I was like a little horror movie kid in like
Yeah.
for the people in my life. But thankfully, my parents are awesome and talked me through it, and were able to strike a really good balance between, believing me and also not encouraging me in
Mm.
that regard. Because I think if you're a little kid and you're having these recurring dreams about just the end of the world as you know it, encouraging that is not a good idea.
Right.
Probably not.
But at the same time, because of the end of the world dreams that I was having, I really got this deep malaise as a child, as a middle schooler. When I hit puberty, I was just like, it's over.
Mm.
Because in my visions, I was always an adult living through the end of the world. And in my little baby brain, I was like, I don't want to be an adult, because once I'm an adult, I'm going to be living through the end of the world. It was this weird.
Right.
So I would do all these little things to prevent myself from growing up. So,
Hmm.
like, not dressing age appropriate, dressing very cartoon childish
Mm.
on purpose, and not going to parties and not doing any benchmark things, and kind of shutting myself away. And yet life found me, and I was not allowed to wallow in my misery. And so there was a lot of that in the poems that I was trawling through to try to like write up for you guys. It's like there was a deep sense of just let me rot in peace
Mm.
from, Cameron from Ferris Bueller. I'm just going to be tucked
Yeah.
in my
Mhm.
bed. And then everybody else, I was just friends with a whole bunch of Ferris Buellers who were like, come outside now. But it really was the expecting an adventure all my life is really just, I grew up on the road in a lot of ways. We would
Okay.
go from, we'd be in the car for hours, and I had a lot of formative memories just in motel rooms and staying with family members, and very itinerant, lifestyle. And I thought that would keep going, but you're supposed to sort of settle down at some point, and that began to happen for me. And there was a difficulty there too, where a lot of my future visions were really just me being like, no, I want the sort of Pippi Longstocking vibe to continue. I want to be able to be this very interesting, very quirky person. I was really, really restless at the same time that I was trying to rest and prevent the future from coming. So it's just this weird, yeah, sense of expectation, and constantly mentally planning, but never letting anyone in on what the plan was or how I saw things going for the future.
Okay. Now it kind of makes sense. I
So
mean,
it's Bobby, the Res Kids, and Ian. They are your zombie survival group.
In that version of me, yeah.
Okay.
but it's also so it's also just hasn't it started? No, it has. So you're trying to figure out like am I an adult now? Have I prevented this from happening? Who's coming along for this last hurrah as kids maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Who could I look to as examples for adulthood? Who could I look to as someone I could rely on when I became an adult? And my life just doesn't look anything like it actually eerily my life simultaneously looks exactly how I thought it would when I was a little kid, and then also nothing like how I thought it would when I was a teenager.
Hmm. You know? Yeah.
That's the fear of growing up. Because, everything doesn't make sense, but it all falls into place somehow still. And it just doesn't work,
Well, do we have another one? We do.
We have a third bad one, and then we have my book of okay to good ones.
Yes, well, I would say they're good, but let's let's look at this third bad one, because this is a different style.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was 18 at the time.
Ooh, we've had some growth.
There we go.
2 years, 2 years of. I called it Untitled #1, which is the most, whatever. Here we go.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay. Imagine, if you will, my kitchen. Are you imagining? Good. Now burn it. Keep the bones. They are concrete. Build on them with dirt and fingerprints. Go out, way past your cozy suburb into a little place called Forgotten Road. Stop at the empty theater and ask yourself, did Wes Anderson ever piss in a place so poor? Did Roland Emmerich, in his destruction of America, ever wonder if America was already dead? Return to my kitchen in person with an old TV set. Plug it in. It will play for you, Master Chef. Listen for a moment to Gordon Ramsay. Laugh at him. Don't laugh at the abuse. Open the charred refrigerator. Pour yourself a glass of Kool-Aid, red. Kick up your calluses and watch the cop follow little boy Black for a solid 6 blocks.
Hey, 18-year-old you has shown a lot of progress.
No.
And this is published. This is out there. Like, not self-published either. Split Rock Review published it.
Oh, cool.
Shocking move on their part for it. But they were so nice about it. They were so awesome.
First of all, Untitled #1. I mean, that's pretty pretentious.
Yeah. Right?
That's not pretty pretentious. That's a dictionary definition of pretension.
It's peak pretentious.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you have a series of Untitled?
No,
you just...
That's so much better.
I have other Untitles, but I would just put a random number because I just didn't know. And I guess technically all the poems in Mayday are Untitled.
Yeah, you don't seem to be one to title. I mean, even from your first two that you've given us, you don't give any titles.
Yeah.
Is that something that you still do? You just not like titling your poems? I mean,
Sometimes I don't. I went through this brief. So yes and no. I started titling them again.
Okay.
I have a poem out in Blood Pudding called "One More Thing Before We Bleed Out," which is a perfectly respectable grown-up title for a poem to have.
Yeah.
Like, tells you what it's about, kind of. It has a melancholy aura. I was really just aesthetically against titles as a teenager. I just didn't like them. I didn't like bolding things. I didn't like having to name something. I think because I went through, and I still have this problem, where if I would title something, I just wouldn't write it because I'd be like, that title is so cool. Nothing is going to match up with how cool that title is.
Right.
Which it's a problem I still have, where if I'm working on a novel right now that, and my agent wants a manuscript on account of it's a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the title was so baller that I'm freaking myself out from finishing it, but it will be finished because it's a job and I'm a grown up. But I was so superstitiously against titles, and then there was that whole Instagram poetry phase of there's an amazing Instagram poet who's since deactivated because of how much she got plagiarized, but she was the one. Naira Waheed was a huge influence on me as a teenager, and she used to do that sort of very spare prose poems that were almost aphorisms, but were just weighty enough to be kind of actually good.
Yeah.
And then she would put her titles with a really long M dash after the poem, really long M dash, and then the title. And that hadn't been done before, really. It was a very Instagram way of doing things, and she was the first to do it. And now everybody does that, but that was how I experimented with titling my poems as a teenager before I just gave up on titling my poems.
Sure. I suppose that it's more inviting to tack the title on at the end, in that maybe it feels less, like you said, where it's like, well, what could follow that would live up to the awesome title that this is?
Yeah, yeah. And I honestly feel a little bit like that about One More Thing, because One More Thing Before We Bleed Out is a very intense title, and I know I wanted to title something that. And the poem's okay. The poem's good. I'm fond of it, but it's in my mind it doesn't have the same staying power as
The
the thing
title
that is on
itself.
top of it.
Sure. Sure. Now, you said that to get to this poem, you have quite a background in film and experimental film. Roland Emmerich?
Yeah.
Are you a fan of his work?
Yes and no. I'm obsessed with his career, or I was as a teenager. I'm saying that
Sure.
present tense, but that's not a fact. As a teenager, I was obsessed with his career because he had Independence Day,
Yeah, yeah.
which was a movie that can best be summed up as America good.
Yeah.
And aliens are ontologically evil because they come here on the 4th of July to kill us Americans, and planet Earth is America, and we
Yeah.
have to defend big America from big anti-America. And it's a great fun film for like if
It
you
is.
don't think about it too hard.
Yeah. Most of his films are
Yeah.
fun adventures if you don't think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Did he do 2012? I can't remember.
I think he did.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's where that
I had to look because I was just like, am I thinking about the right guy here?
Yeah.
Because like,
He does all the
okay.
disaster ones.
Yeah.
Right? Day After
Day
Tomorrow.
After Tomorrow.
was on there?
Yeah. He's constant. That's what I meant as a teenager when I wrote this, because he was just blowing up America all the time, or
Yeah.
freaking
All
it
the
over,
time.
or
Yes. That was
flooding
his
it.
that was his shtick.
And I always thought that was so fascinating that this German guy was like, I know what my career is going to be.
America.
America.
In
Very,
disaster.
very patriotic
Yeah.
in a way where it was like showing our patriotism through our death had always just was. That was my first big critical thought as a teenager was oh, maybe America is. I mean, I'm native, so I'm like, I already had a weird relationship with America.
Right.
Understandable.
Even like as a teenager who was not necessarily anti-American, really, I was just. But this was my first vaguely un-American thought was, if Roland Emmerich has to blow up our country over and over and over again in order to show how great we are, like how great are we as a country that we can only be good under threat of loss of life, extreme loss of life.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from. That reference came from in that poem.
It's a good thought. I mean, I like the ever wonder if America was already dead. It's yeah. I mean, you get the critical thought there, and I love how like this feels like almost like an awakening. It's like your first steps into, dare I say, wokeness, or just like, whereas
Totally.
like, yeah, you can laugh at Gordon Ramsay, but not the abuse. It's like you're finally like parsing the media that we are raised in.
Yeah, it was like my first time experience. It was my first time understanding, because I grew up in a very, our very, very not diverse town. It was Native people and white people, and oftentimes an intermarried, intermingled sort of blend.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand, like, my experience of like police violence or racism, all of that was really just like white on native. And so my first ever experiences of like, oh, black people are oppressed came around the time that I got a smartphone. And I was like, oh, that's the thing. I knew about it vaguely because my dad was raising me on Romero films and was using that to talk about just zombies as the other, and zombies as the thing to kill with impunity because we can't be racist anymore. It was just very like lots and lots of conversations were being had in our household about race and racism, but I never clocked it as a serious issue that affected children like me and children younger than me until smartphones made me aware of that as a kid. So it is like baby's first woke poem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking to two straight white guys, so we completely understand.
We've had our own awakenings. I'll just say
Oh
that, and we're
no.
still learning. We
Yeah.
are, yeah,
That's such a blessing to always be still learning. I love learning every day.
yeah,
I hope I never stop learning.
oh,
But
yeah.
sometimes we need to,
Sometimes
learn a
we
little
need
more
no
quickly
no
and
things. Yeah.
recognize it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes we just need to know it. We just need to know it.
Sometimes
Yeah.
we need to know it
Yeah.
eventually. Yeah, yeah, fair point.
One more thing. We're running a little long here, but Forgotten Road is capitalized. Um, is
Hmm.
that a
So
reference that I should pick up on, or is that some? No. Okay.
I it originally alluded to the how like I lived in like low income housing briefly as like a child. I grew up in a my family's not well my family's not very we weren't wealthy. And so like I had a lot of in and out of Franklin Avenue as a child, and a lot of just like yeah low income housing projects
Sure.
areas as a child. But when I was 18, I at that point didn't feel like I could claim that as a narrative. I didn't,
Hmm.
especially because I was we had just moved into my mom had just remarried and bought a second house. Like it was
Hmm.
just the first house was bought with my relatively affluent white great grandmother's money while she was still alive. She was like, she handed it for my parents to buy this house, and then my mom still owns that house and like leases it out to their friends, and
Sure.
then
Okay.
moved down the road, bought a second house. And I remember thinking, okay, the fact that we have two houses
Yeah.
is so far and away from how it used to be when I was little, and that's still something I grapple with. Where like the mind melting nature of being growing up, kind of like going from food stamps to being like poor and below the poverty line and imperiled, and then suddenly upwardly mobile very quickly. But like once you're a teenager and an adult, and it sits weird with you. So
Sure.
that was really I had name dropped an actual low income neighborhood in the you know north side of
Ah.
Minneapolis, and I was like, I can't do that. Actually, I'm gonna scribble that out, and I made something up that really just adds to the pretentious air of it, where it was like forgotten road capitalized, and I just
No.
made it up as a kid to be like, nobody can cancel me for claiming this neighborhood that I no longer have claim to.
Huh.
Yeah,
Wow. I mean, in some ways, it's like self awareness and yet also a denial of oneself. It's like, wow, I don't know what to say about that. Oh, anything else from this poem? Oh, one other thing. Imagine my kitchen. Are you imagining it good? Now burn it. Bold start.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings.
yeah,
I'm always like, when someone does that, okay, this is just a kind of a pet peeve of mine. So if I'm showing my cards, but if someone's like, good morning, and then everyone's like, morning, and then they're like, oh, you could do better than that. Good morning. And then everyone has to say it again. That's kind of what I feel like when people are like, imagine this. Are you imagining it? Good.
Hmm.
It has that like double, it's like, you don't have to say it twice. I gotcha.
yeah. Like bringing it back to Hayward. To be honest, I went to Hayward High School, and our administrator Craig Olson during our pep rallies, he was so big on that attitude. Like I remember one of our assemblies was him saying, "When I ask you how you're doing, I want you to say good." He was like, "Don't tell me the truth. Do not tell me the
Yeah.
truth. Do not concern me with that." It was I mean no, that's he's like I have a lot of fondness for so many of my teachers, and him too.
Hmm.
Even though like as a kid you're supposed to vilify your principal or whatever,
Sure.
which because
Yeah.
sure he's the top cop of your school, but he was like I remember at the time I was like this is so annoying. Just let me be angsty in peace. But it really like impacted me. It was
Yeah.
he psyoped me into being an annoyingly positive person because like, he was kind of right. Like I've come across other adults now that I'm out in the world, and I'll be like, "How are you doing?" And it's like, this is going to be a 2 second interaction. I'm just asking how you're doing, and
Hmm.
they're like, and I'm like, "Oh God!" like it's just
I was
it's
expecting to keep walking rather than sit and listen to your day.
yeah. And like sometimes if I'm friends with the person, then like sure, I want to hear about it. But it
Yeah.
was so funny though, because he had that attitude of like good morning. And so that really just I think I was very fresh off of that when I wrote this poem because he had just I think he just not retired, but he became superintendent. He was principal and then he was superintendent. And so we stopped seeing him except for at the pep rallies. And yeah, that verbiage, that like energy really did impact a lot of the way I spoke and wrote as a
Mhm.
kid.
I,
Yeah. And
I,
I don't write like that anymore. So like and I also have that pet peeve where I'm like, okay, stop.
I love how throughout these poems you have just seen and acknowledged the fingerprints of those who have inspired you. That's such a
Yeah.
cool thing that you can name check all these folks in your lives. That's just awesome.
Hmm.
Thanks. I mean, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky to have had yeah, I feel like I'm a very lucky person with the educators I've had
Hmm.
throughout my life.
Well, we have been incredibly lucky to have you. But we need to wrap this up, unfortunately. And
Yep.
before we
Yeah.
let you go, we here at My Bad Poetry, we end each week with the words of a true poet. So, would you be willing to read for us a poem that you, in fact, are proud of or that you think is good?
Thank you. Yeah, let's do it. This is from Mayday, and it's there will always be another horror to bear witness to, another insurmountable obstacle as we carry the weight of all we grieve. We are always entering and exiting the morgue where our own bodies lay bare and barren, asked by visitors who we are. Under the bright gray light of morning, there will always be snow somewhere. This I swear, if not to you, then to our children. There will always be broken roads, shattered glass, especially where the obstacles once stood. They do not bury us. Our bodies bear too much. This stainless steel slab is so cold, I know how to make it snow. Under the shroud of frozen roads, I grieve glass into ice in the bright, doesn't it look?
Hmm.
Just so joyful, right?
Dave. uh,
No,
yeah,
I
that was,
love it.
yeah, that was incredible.
No.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank
Is
you for
there
having me.
anything else you want to plug or anything?
Right now, I mean, I've got a poem coming out in Matchbook Lit Mag, or not poem. It's poetic prose coming
Cool.
out in Matchbook Lit Mag. That'll be live on April 7th.
Awesome.
That's necessary to say because the way they have a really cool setup where whatever the current thing is just on their website main page and
Oh.
no yeah. And then once that week is over, you can check it in the archive, but it'll be going live April 7th. And yeah, I'm going to be receding into the privacy of my own home for the next couple of months because I got into a TV writers program that
Nice.
promises to eat all my time. So hopefully
Yeah.
I'll have more news after the fact.
That's incredible. Well, awesome. This has been My Bad Poetry.
Now go write some of your own bad poetry.
And that's from Mayday.
Yeah.
What page is that? I need to dog ear that.
That one is from
Oh,
page
I found
8.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, you did tab a couple times. Look
Yeah.
at you.
I know I grew a little bit.
Rhyme or free doesn't matter to me. It's my bad poetry.